We just miss Joel Embiid. VJ Edgecombe got right to the point. But my message to him, Keith, better get used to that. We'll both talk about what that means on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network out there. And this particular episode is brought to you by none other than 5 Hour Energy. Come on now. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed, vanilla-y, cakey flavored, caffeinated kick, and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or at amazon.com for your 5 Hour Energy. Keith, we've got to get to this road trip. Sixers got coming up here Saturday, Sunday night, 7 o'clock start times in New Orleans against Pelicans, Minnesota against Timberwolves on Sunday. We also got to get to this loss against the sub-500 Atlanta Hawks. And then the thing that was just on repeat in my brain after watching the post-game news conferences, Nick Nurse spoke, Tyrese Maxey spoke in his locker yesterday, and then VJ Edgecombe spoke, and you heard VJ just say, yeah, we miss Embiid. He's a walking 30 points. So my message, Keith, is I think an obvious one here. You better get used to it. Because as much as we enjoyed January, as much as we enjoyed Joel Embiid averaging 30-plus a game and being red hot and getting better and better and all that stuff, something like this was bound to happen. Another 3 games now missed, hopefully not much longer. Nick Nurse did say after the game last night it shouldn't be too much longer. But the Sixers are going to have to get used to he's in the lineup, he's not in the lineup. You certainly got to get used to Paul George not being around because he's still not going to be around for quite some time. Sixers have to find the way to adjust. And there's been a 3-week period earlier in the season where they should have been able to adjust and get used to it. So right now, Keith, it's just a matter of getting used to the idea that you're going to have Joel Embiid, then you're not going to have him. Then you're going to have him. He's going to be great. Then you're not going to have him. Sixers got to make that adjustment. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, they do, but it's kind of hard right now for them to make that adjustment. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, beforehand, when Joel missed several games, they had Paul George in the lineup, right? And then when Paul George was out, they had Joel. And then we remember how when they had both of those guys out of the lineup, how bad they looked, right? And the problem that they're faced with right now is, okay, so, and this isn't a knock at Dom Barlow, it's not a knock at Jabari Walker, but we're talking about 2 rotation players, Dom Barlow, one being the starter, the other one being a pretty good, guy coming off the bench. Well, these are 2 guys who just had to get their contracts converted from 2 ways. And the reason why they had to get 2 ways is because the Sixers had $110 million allocated to these 2 players in Joel Embiid and Paul George. So when we say you got to get used to it, it's like we're looking at the team that they lost to yesterday. And you're saying, okay, you lost to a team losing, a team that's like, at that time before the game, they were the 10th best team in the East. But when you take, and you got to be real, when you take Joel Embiid and Paul George out of that roster, off the Sixers roster, you got to say that Atlanta has a better roster when it comes down to young players and stuff like that. So when we say get used to it, yeah, but now it's kind of like you don't have Paul George being a higher up guy in the rotation who can knock down shots, a guy who can help with the ball handling duties. Now what you have is you have all the pressure on Tyrese Maxey to score, and when that happens, his shooting percentage isn't as high as it should be because he's forcing shots. And then VJ Edgecombe, what are you going to do? And guys like, no offense to the Trendon Watfords of the world and other guys, but they go from being reliable role players to having to now carry some of the load. And when you do stuff like that, it's tough. And it's just because, we're talking about $110 million on the bench not playing.
Yeah. And when you say that, it's also just the beginning of that. I mean, when you think about what Joel Embiid after this year, well, including this year, you're talking about 4 years with that extension still. So, yeah, I still default to, even though you talk about the roster of the Atlanta Hawks, they got to find a way to be better than what we saw last night. Maybe that just comes with time with VJ Edgecombe. That's certainly a logical way to look at it. But I guess it was the first quarter of last night that made me think, oh, maybe they can get this. It's a sub-500 team. We're going to be looking for them to hopefully still be around a 500 team, and however long it takes Joel to come back, and then maybe get that boost when he does come back, or definitely get that boost when he comes back, and then maybe get a boost when Paul George comes back. But in the meantime, these guys have been in and out of the lineup pretty much all season. Tyrese Maxey needs to be that all-star. Tyrese Maxey needs to be the guy who can come up clutch. And one of the reasons that this was so upsetting last night was VJ Edgecombe comes out, looks great, 9 points in the first quarter. Tyrese Maxey had 12 or 13 in the first quarter. It's looking like they're going to cook. So it's like, okay, those are guys that could be the star of the show that's hopefully match up well with Jalen Johnson, for instance, in last night's game. And then they can't win the first quarter. They can't win the second. Somehow, crazily, Keith, they win the third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, they come out slow. Maxey talked about it after the game as well. And they weren't able to find that next year. So, I mean, does it fall on just not being talented enough? Or do you look at Nick Nurse and say, you got to organize this talent a little bit better at the same time?
You know, and that's a great question, because I think a lot of people look at it and they say to themselves, you know, Maxey is an all-star. You know, he has to carry this team. He has to do better. You know, yes, Maxey is an all-star, but even Michael Jordan has Scottie Pippen, and Maxey isn't Michael Jordan, right?
Yeah.
You know, even Kevin Durant, when they went, you know, real rap, like when Kevin Durant was, you know, when they went to Oklahoma City, he had James Harden, he had Russell Westbrook, right? You know, when he won the championship with Golden State, you know, he had Clay and Steph and Draymond, and even Steph Curry had Durant and Clay and all these other guys. So to me, when I look at this game yesterday, and I know a lot of people are saying, you know, what are they doing? This and that. They had Jalen Johnson, another all-star, right? They had other players who are quality players. Like, you know, they had Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels. I mean, both of these dudes are elite defenders. So you're going to tell me right now you got VJ Edgecombe, great rookie, right? Should be rookie of the year. He's going to be an all-star, perennial all-star. But you have Tyrese Maxey, you have those two guys. So you mean to tell me that when you got Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who are two lockdown defenders, that's going to be a tough matchup for the 76ers. It just is. And then they got other guys. Like, then you got Jalen Johnson out there. I don't know anybody on the Sixers roster who can stop him. You know what I mean? But so it's all about matchups. And to me, it's just one of those things where the 76ers, when you lose all these other guys and you have these role players, you just don't have it. And that's why, Maxey, some people are like, well, he got to do more. He got to do more. Well, we know what Maxey's weaknesses are, right? Where it's like, he tries to do too much at certain times. But at the same time, it's like other teams, if we know it, they know it. And it's easier to defend it because he doesn't have other all-stars on the floor who he can defer to at times. You know what I mean? I think that's the biggest problem. And yes, I get it. This is a team that they're 0-3 against. This is a team that doesn't have a winning record that they're losing to. Mm-hmm. But believe me, they played the Sixers very numerous other times with Joel and PG, and they lost. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying.
Yep. No, it's a good team. It's a good team. Certainly disappointing, though, still, when you talk about trying to keep your head above water when you don't have Joel and you don't have PG and you don't want to just be a play-in tournament team, although that seems to certainly be where they're headed. And then you go on this road trip and you hope you can pick up some pieces and you get Joel back sooner rather than later. When we come back, we'll talk about the loss specifically to the Atlanta Hawks, not just as it pertains to Joel Embiid, but the guys that were out there last night. And one, I mentioned one statistical anomaly, Keith, already with the Sixers. The only quarter they won last night was the fourth quarter, but something else that would have led me to believe that they were going to win the game, but unfortunately that was taken away. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers. Make sure you like and subscribe. Back after this. And let's start it off by talking about FanDuel, ladies and gentlemen. You ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with the NBA sweepstakes on FanDuel. Here's how it works. Use a profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board right now and thinking, what should I do? This is a great time to put it in there for the future bet. Love futures this time of year especially. Things are starting to get a little bit more clear about the playoff picture, whether it's picking the team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that little extra layer of excitement courtesy of the great people at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future to get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. And how about Quo? New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's where Quo comes in. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make to your team. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, Quo, the smarter way to turn your business communications into a more efficient way to do business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team, they could text from the same number, one shared business number, so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It's no surprise Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this year where no opportunity, no customer slips away. Try Quo, Q-U-O, for free, plus 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/lockedonnba. That's QUO.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And also don't forget about the Everydayer Club. Go to LockedOn76ers.supercast.com for ad-free episodes from the Everydayer Club for Locked On 76ers. So one quarter they win is the third quarter. Can't say there's been too many games this season where that's happened, Keith. Might have been the only one, actually. And they go on to lose the game. The other was the Sixers had been getting killed, Keith, on the offensive glass. 17-4, 18-9, just getting absolutely dominated on the offensive glass. Last night, Keith, they only get out-rebounded by a total of 4, I think it was in total. But on the offensive glass, they got out-rebounded by 1 rebound. The difference was the second chance points. The Sixers had no idea what to do when they got offensive rebounds, apparently. Midway through the fourth quarter, the Hawks were outscoring the Sixers in second chance points 23-11. For me, that was a big reason as to why the 76ers lost this game last night. Too many second chance points allowed.
Yeah, too many second chance points. And then we also look at it, sometimes what happens is, it's second chance points, and then also they had a 6-point advantage on fast break points, which they shot 9 for 15. And when I'm looking at it is, the 76ers didn't get a lot of these offensive rebounds from what I say is like the guards or any. Like when you look at it, I mean, VJ Edgecombe, 0 offensive rebounds, Tyrese Maxey, 0, Quentin Grimes, 0. Cam Payne, 0. Justin Edwards, 0. And I added Justin Edwards because he's a wing. But when you look at it, the other team, Dyson Daniels, 1, CJ McCollum, 1, Corey Crispin, 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you look at Buddy Hield, he didn't play, but you look at other guys who had him. But so my thing is, it's kind of like when you get those guys getting it, that means they're cutting, they're crashing, they're doing a lot of other things. So when you're relying, because sometimes, let's face it, if you shoot a long range shot, sometimes that rebound is not underneath the basket. Sometimes it bounces back out. But they weren't able to get those second chance points that way from the guard spot. And when you look at it, you say to yourself, like, look at Drummond. Drummond had 5 offensive boards. Adembona had 3. Jabari Walker had 2. Drummond ended up with 14 rebounds, a game high. Adembona had 7 rebounds, whereas Jabari Walker had 3. But I just felt like the other guys, that's where they got destroyed at. It was like getting second chance points and rebounds from the guard position. They were the ones who weren't doing it. And ideally, you say to yourself, like, well, we need the bigs to do it. But when you realize that the other team's guards are getting boards, well, who are they getting the boards over? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
They're not getting them over Drummond and other people. Like, they may crash the boards and everything, but it just seems like they were getting out hustled a little bit in the perimeter and like on these long rebound attempts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, more often than not, it's going to be Drummond. It's going to be Walker. It's going to be Adembona. Obviously, those are going to be the guys getting the boards. My thing is, if those guys are getting the rebounds on the offensive glass, the guys they're kicking it out to got to convert. They got to find a way to capitalize. And on the defensive end of things, you got to make sure you're getting those boards as well, so they're not allowing 23 or at least 23 opportunities to put up points after an offensive rebound is had by the other team. So, look, I know on the offensive glass we're making a big deal of that because that's been such a struggle for the Sixers in general this year. But it's all going to come down to when you have open shots. And in the first quarter, Tyrese Maxey said he struggled finding his flow. They were double teaming a lot. He'd bring the ball up, see the double team, dump it off to VJ. VJ was capitalizing. That's the way a lot of that worked last night. But then Tyrese started to find a little bit of a flow as the game went on. Bottom line is you got to hit these shots. And when you're limited because you don't have the other scorers, the big money players that you talked about when it comes to either Joel Embiid or Paul George, VJ Edgecombe's got to step up, and he did that yesterday. But then you need to see other guys hit those consistent shots. Like Kelly Oubre last night. I understand he didn't make a 3, but he only had 3 attempts from beyond the arc. Like Kelly Oubre like needs to shoot more, obviously needs to get more shot or more points. He had 17 last night, but still, when you're talking about a 3-point threat that he could be, you need him to get hot. I was waiting for that next guy to step up, and unfortunately it just didn't happen. Nobody was hitting shots with great consistency last night. Quentin Grimes had a little bit of a run there in the early goings of the game. He actually had a circus layup in that fourth quarter that I thought was really going to be the quarter in the machine for the Sixers to get them going. That was part of a 10-0 run they were able to put together. But once that flame went out, they were cooked. So rebounding, on the offensive glass, certainly a big thing, and it was good to see him actually do it last night, not being able to convert. Hopefully that's only just the next problem the Sixers will hopefully solve. But rebounding in general still needs to get better with this basketball team. And I know we've talked about campaign being added here to try to, boost the 76ers a little bit coming off the bench. He wasn't able to convert anything last night. He was 0 for 3 last night, 0 points in 10 minutes played in his return to the Sixers. But it still comes down to rebounding and making sure you get guys coming off the bench to help you if it's not going to be Drummond and it's not going to be Bona. Last night they were able to do that for the most part. But rebounding still, whether it's offensive boards or overall, in some way, shape, or form, will haunt this team until they find a way to address it.
It's crazy because I know I kind of liked how Campaign played, though, a little bit. I know he missed all 3 of his shots, right?
Brought the ball up, yep.
He brought the ball up. He had it's crazy because he had a team-high 5 assists, and he only played 9 minutes and 59 seconds. He also had 2 steals, right? And so it's like to a point where you look at it and maybe you say to yourself afterwards, that's a guy, I know that's his first game, so you got to see what he does, but that's a guy who could have deserved more minutes. And when you look at this game, is the bizarre part about it is that, the Hawks got up to a big lead. The Sixers seemed like they were just in quicksand for a little bit, and they couldn't come back. Like they would try to get back and they would do a lot of different things after a while. I mean, I know there were 13 lead changes, but I'm talking about in the second half, late in the game. But when you look at it, you say to yourself, the Hawks, they made 38 of 89 shots, whereas the Sixers made 33 of 86. The Hawks made 10 of 32 3-pointers, whereas the Sixers made 11 of 33, right? So we talk about foul shooting. They made the Hawks 31 of 40 foul shots, Sixers 30 of 37. So and even down to turnovers, you look at it. Now this is the key thing right here in the game. So the 76ers committed 16 turnovers, which led to 22 points by the Hawks, right? Whereas the Hawks committed 14 turnovers and led to 9 points by the Sixers. And then we look at it, it seems like a lot of them transition baskets too, because when it comes down to points in the paint, although Drummond and Drummond and Bona, had quality games, you might add, you know what I mean? The Sixers in the paint were outscored 54 to 38. So when we talk about it, it's always guys getting in, penetrating, doing what they can, these straight line drives. Jalen Johnson, power forward or wing for him, he had 32 points on 9 for 22 shooting. Zach Ricochet had 10 points on 4 for 8 shooting. So it just seems like it was just they were killed in the paint and they were killed on those turnovers. Like, even though the turnovers were close, they only had 2 more than them. The other team took full advantage of it, whereas the 76ers only scored 9 points off of 14 turnovers.
That sounds to me that they're very opportunistic, and the Sixers were not. Second chance points, like you mentioned, in favor heavily of the Hawks, and then also being able to score in the paint in favor of the Hawks, and then being able to convert turnovers into points, opportunistic. When we come back, we'll take a look at this road trip. We'll be expecting the 76ers over the next 3 games, including the back-to-back Saturday and Sunday, and then they're going to be in Indianapolis on Tuesday. Talk about that and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Back after this. And 5-hour energy. You drag it in the middle of the day, something like that. Pick up a 5-hour energy and get back on track. 5-hour energy is what you need. It's a great boost in the middle of the day, or maybe even to start your day. And I'd just like to welcome you to 5-hour energy flavor draft. We're looking at every aspect of the draft, the 5-hour energy flavor draft, to see what you think is the tastiest of the flavors, the ones you like the most. The board is set. The flavors are ready. The only one is going to take home that top spot. So whether you're a cherry, whether you like cherry, whether you like a fruity rainbow, whether you like confetti craze, out of your mind, cotton candy, that's the way to look at it. Delicious. Maybe you're a sour apple person. I don't know. We're going to be looking at this whole draft, and you guys can get involved as well. Wide variety of flavors. They got something for everyone. They got the boost you need with 0 sugar. I like cherry. That's my personal favorite. So you can describe what you like the best, and we can really enjoy it with 5-hour energy. Find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots. Available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. So go to 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. That's the number 5hourenergy.com, and check it out on Amazon as well. Maybe you like the cotton candy. Maybe you like just the standard berry as well. Maybe grape, a nice grape. That'll be good for you. Try that. Also, strawberry banana. That's a good one. 5hourenergy.com or check out Amazon for 5-hour energy. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Keith, they go to New Orleans, 7 o'clock Saturday night. They go to Minnesota, 7 o'clock Sunday night. Then they go to Indianapolis to take on the Pacers Tuesday night at 7 o'clock as well. That's tip-off out there in the Midwest. What are your expectations when it comes to the 76ers in this 3-game road trip? And is there any shot Joel Embiid joins them on the road trip?
That's the key. You know what I mean? Like they say, Joel's going to practice today and they'll see. Um, I mean, my thing is when I look at this road trip, I can they beat New Orleans? I think they can if Joel plays, right? But I don't even if he's on the trip, I don't expect him to play against Minnesota. Now, things can happen and things always find a way of working themselves out. Like the Sixers are a bizarre team. And I don't mean that with disrespect.
I know. No, but I just want to say, can confirm.
Can confirm. Like, so how many times have we watched the 76ers and we said they're going to get blown out tonight and then they win the game, or they're going to crush this team and they win? So, but the problem with the Minnesota Timberwolves to me is they're coming off of a back-to-back. You got Anthony Edwards. You got a lot of good players. They're a long, athletic team. They're a good team, better than what their record, some people may say, right? I just don't see the 76ers winning that game at all. I just don't. And Indiana is a team that's tanking, right? But at the same time, they play hard. But they are tanking. So, you know what? I see the Sixers, they could go 2-1, but to me, that's if Joel Embiid plays. If not, I think the best bet for them could be going 1-2. And that's it. Like, I think, that's the best bet. Because I get it. The Pelicans are tanking, so are the other teams, so is Indiana, right? But I do think that there goes certain times where teams want to get a feel-good victory, and they're going to be playing at home, and a lot of things. And I feel like the Pels, depending on who plays that game, especially after how they lost to the Sixers last time, it could be a game where they could beat the Sixers. It could be. It could be.
Well, here's where this goes. You mentioned Minnesota, just to go to them real quick. Well, I'll go in order. I'll go in order here. So the New Orleans Pelicans have 15 wins on the season.
Yeah.
Oh boy, don't lose that game, please. Then they face the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves are 34-22. Yet at this moment, the Timberwolves and the Sixers occupy the same seed in their respective conferences. So that just shows you where the West is at versus the East. Another example of that for the people that don't already know. Sixers, of course, just 5 games over 500. The Minnesota Timberwolves are 12 games over 500 at this given moment. And then they take on the Indiana Pacers. That's where we're at right now. And the Pacers, also a 15-win team, just like the Pelicans. Please don't disappoint me, Sixers. Please give us some sanity through this weekend and into Tuesday when you take on the Pacers.
But see, here's the thing about the Pelicans, the thing that gets me. So, yeah, I know that what happened is they beat the Memphis Grizzlies, and then they came to Philly, and they lost to the Sixers. They lost to the Hornets, and they lost to the Bucks, right? Well, you could say all 3 of those losses were, you expect that to happen, especially with the Hornets, right? But then we're talking about this Timberwolves team that we look at and we're saying is pretty good. Well, they beat the Timberwolves. And then the Sacramento Kings team that we know is in disarray, they boat raced that team. Yeah. But then, they lost to the Heat, their recent game, and they lost to them by, 22 points? Or no, I take that back, by 12. 12 points. So it's kind of like the only thing that I'm talking about is when I look at the 76ers and I look at the problems that they have, it's like sometimes getting offensive rebounds. Like, okay, we know that Drummond probably played a great game. We know that Dembele played a great game. But to me, when you see a guard like Jeremiah Fears who's playing well, but the guy, Zion Williams, like, is there anybody that I think, and he played poorly against the Sixers the last game for the most part, but sometimes you think that if anybody has a competitive bone in their body, that they're going to make it so that they're going to play completely better the next time. We look at Derek Queen, the center, who said he wanted to play against Embiid. And he played against him all right, and Embiid kind of like embarrassed him a little bit. But then you say to him, do you have a competitive gene in your body? So to me, it's also about matchups, especially when you don't have PG and you don't have Embiid, assuming Embiid doesn't play. It's just going to be a lot of pressure, in my opinion, on Tyrese Maxey and on VJ Edgecombe to do things and, to produce. So that's the reason why when I say, I don't know about this one. I'm just thinking about, what's motivating said team that day and thinking about the 76ers roster.
Mm-hmm. No, makes sense. Here's rooting for the best outcome for the Sixers, but unfortunately not betting on it. We'll be back with you guys on Monday to break it down even further when it comes to the 76ers and react to their road trip, taking on, again, the Pacers at the end of the road trip on Tuesday, then Minnesota before that, and then they got the Pelicans coming up in the first game of the 3-game set Saturday night. Keith Pompey, longtime 76ers beat writer. Marc Farzetta, veteran sports talker with you in the city of brotherly love. Back with you guys on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you guys then.